Welcome to another episode of Radio Influencers, a podcast series we're doing for Radio Update. And I have a very special guest in with me today, RJ Curtis. How are you doing, sir?
I'm great. Andy, thank you for having me today. I appreciate that.
Yeah, happy to have you on. RJ is the executive director of the Country Radio Broadcasters Incorporated and a member of the Country Radio Hall of Fame. And of course, we're going to talk about CRS, but before we get into all that, because that's coming up next month, can you kind of tell me your radio origin story, how you got into this silly business we're in?
Yeah, like a lot of people in my generation, I grew up listening to the radio and constantly. And so I decided at an early age, like 10 or 11, that's what I wanted to do. And I really, through high school and all that, it was just kind of focused on that. A lot of people go through different iterations of I want to be a fireman or a policeman or whatever, but I was always, radio, and I stuck to that. So I started my radio career actually as a kind of a gopher at K-Big in Los Angeles. I grew up in the LA area and worked there during my years in college. And then as I was going to college doing campus radio at a junior college where I was attending and playing football there, started in radio, first on-air job in 1979 out in San Bernardino. I worked out there for a couple years. And then when KZLA in Los Angeles flipped to country in October of 1980, I got a job doing weekends there. And that was my foray into country radio. And I've been exclusively country since then. 30 years in radio, 28 of them in country radio, in markets like Los Angeles, 3 different tours there. I was in Phoenix at KNIX for 6 years, and in San Bernardino, KCYY, programming that for 4 years. And somewhere in the middle of all that, I did about a year with After Midnight. This is before they were purchased by Premier. They were privately owned then by Blair Garner and Rod West. And I was a director of operations there for about a year. But I missed day-to-day radio, and I came back to that in 1996, and that was the move to San Antonio. So up until 2006, day-to-day radio programming and on-air stuff. And then in 2006, Emmis flipped KZLA out of country. And shortly thereafter, I joined R&R and then started my journey in the trade publication and writing about radio. And the rest is just, from there to CRS. So,
well, and I like what you said in there about starting off as a gopher in LA, because one of the things I always tell young people when they're looking to get into radio is there's this misconception that it's just impossible to get in to start at a major market, and it's not. You just have to start sweeping the floors or doing whatever you need to do to get in the door.
I was doing a project for a radio class that I was taking in college, and just left my phone number everywhere. And then they were looking for a music line operator is what my official title was there, Andy. And that was just answering questions about music at KBIG, which at the time, and some of your listeners and followers might remember that there was a format called Beautiful Music in the 70s that was quite successful. And KBIG was like the number one station in LA. And so they didn't back announce. It was very, the music was played and they didn't really backsell. It wasn't like that the announcers were jockeying the music. So they hired people like me to answer the phone and answer questions about what was played. And it was made very clear to me by the program director, we're hiring you to do that. There's little to no chance, just let's call it zero, that you'll end up working on the air here. I understood that completely. I just needed to understand what it was like to be in a radio station. And the moment I set foot in the door, I was like, yeah, this is, you're dreaming about it, thinking about it. But when I got into the building, I was like, absolutely, this is where I belong. These are my people. I'm one of their people. This is what I'm doing for the rest of my life.
You were bit by the bug, as we all say.
Yeah, the moment I stepped in the door, it was great.
So obviously, CRS is coming up less than a month out now, February 19th through the 21st. If someone's never been to CRS before, what's the main reason they should make a point to go this year?
I think there's 2, actually, Andy, if I may. One is, one of the things that I think has been a success for CRS and why it's been so appealing over the years is our strong emphasis on education. So if you look at our website, countryradioseminar.com, you'll see a very robust and busy schedule of educational sessions that go on during the day. And I think those are the real takeaways that you can bring back to the radio station or your place of work, not just radio, but streaming and whatever your role is in the country music industry. So we take very a big pride in that, and we work very hard to be diligent about making sure those sessions are relevant and helpful and provide tangible takeaways. The other one that I would say is that it's an incredible networking opportunity, and there are so many people that I know in the business, myself included, that will tell you that their career advancement and the amount of people that they've met and connections were made at CRS, and that's another hallmark of our event. So whether you're looking to learn something or just meet a lot of people and make connections, I think it's a great opportunity to do so every year at CRS.
If you're planning on going and trying to figure out your own schedule, what are some of the best networking opportunities in there that you, if that's the main reason you're going, you want to make sure you're a part of?
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot of it happens in the hallways, but there are
Yeah.
actual built into the agenda networking opportunities. We have a breakfast on Wednesday morning it's called Y'all Means All. It's kind of a diversity breakfast where everybody, whoever you are, okay, you are welcome at CRS. Well, we welcome all kinds of kinds. Everybody's there. We're all in the country music industry and working to advance our own careers and advance the entire genre and lift it up. There is something that we've been doing for many years now, a women's programming mentoring breakfast on Friday morning. And that's where we, specifically for the females in our industry, where they can get together and talk and network and make connections and compare notes. There is a programming happy hour on Wednesday, the 19th, and that is just a full programmers networking opportunity. So those are three things that are embedded into the agenda. This is dedicated as a networking opportunity, but the rest of it is just what goes on during the hallways, before, after the sessions, and at many of the musical showcase opportunities, of which there are many at CRS.
Well, I always say in this business, you got to network to get work. It's so incredibly
Yeah,
important.
Absolutely. Yeah, for sure.
So New Faces is always a hot ticket. Another good lineup this year. Dasha, I always mispronounce that. Drew Baldridge, Zach Top. Are there still tickets left to that? I imagine that's already sold out at this point.
That one's sold out. Yeah, New Faces is one of those. It's the finale of CRS. It's always the last event of the week, and because there's a lot of excitement around the performers, those tickets sell out. We used to include tickets to New Faces with registration, but in order to better manage, who's in the room and who's staying in the room, and really to get the tickets in the right hands, we actually made that a separate ticket, which has been fine. But yeah, that one sold out really quickly. But to your point, the lineup is really solid. Dasha, and I do the same thing, Andy. It's Dasha or Dasha. I'm not sure either. I should know that. She's amazing. That's going to be great. And Zach Top, I think, are a lot of people excited about. Drew Baldridge is a great story. Ashley Cook and Warren Zeiders, who played a couple showcase events last year at CRS. I think it really is representative of all the great talent that's coming into our genre with new artists. And it's going to be a great, great show. Full production, maybe for some people attending it and being at New Faces, the first time they've seen any of these artists. Well, full production, full band, lights, the whole enchilada. So I think it's going to be a great night.
Yeah, a couple of years ago, I was at CRS, and at lunch, a colleague that was there was like, "Hey, I'm going to this lunch thing. There's a couple surprise guests at it." And I was like, "Well, I got to take this work call. It won't take long." And I ended up missing the whole thing. And when he comes out, I'm like, "Hey, by the way, who were the special guests?" He goes, "George Strait and Alan Jackson." I'm like,
yeah.
"Oh."
Last year at the Warner Brothers lunch, which is the kind of the kickoff to the musical events at CRS, it's on the first day at 12 noon on Wednesday the 19th. And they do it every year. They do a fantastic job of getting their roster to show up. But last year, Blake Shelton and Gwen Stefani were the special guests. And I thought that was really special. It was really neat.
Yeah, and this year you've got the Bob Kingsley Acoustic Alley, Tyler Hubbard's in there, Old Dominion. Can you set the scene? What are some of those acoustic shows kind of like?
I think the Acoustic Alley event, Andy, is my favorite one because it really strips down things to the very basics and the very origins of what people are hearing on the radio, fully produced and the final product. This event has morphed a little bit. It used to be a strictly songwriter only. Some people that you wouldn't know the names, but you'd know the names of the songs that they wrote.
Right.
And then just to evolve the event, we've added artists to perform with still a core of songwriting for Acoustic Alley. And so it's it is, as it says, a very acoustic evening, very intimate, a lot of stories. And I think that's interesting for people who don't get a chance to go to writers' rounds a lot. You can sit and hear the writer of the song tell you about what the inspiration was. A lot of times they're talking about what was happening in the room when they were writing or co-writing it. And I think those are fascinating stories. So we do have Tyler Hubbard, as you mentioned, and Old Dominion. In the middle, of course, we have Red Akins, who's kind of a mainstay. He was very close to Bob Kingsley, and and Nan Kingsley, Bob's widow, and a good friend to CRS. She loves Rhett, and it wouldn't be Acoustic Alley without him. But he's got 2 young songwriters this year. He wanted to bring in 2 up-and-coming younger songwriters. So there's 2. Mackenzie Carpenter is one, and she wrote Megan Maroney's song.
Was it no. Tennessee?
No, it
Orange?
wasn't that one. This is embarrassing because it was on the tip of my tongue. It's not I'm Okay. She wrote the first big hit that Megan had. I'm sorry to all of your followers who think I'm an idiot right now.
Who are screaming at the podcast.
And then another one, and then a young guy, Johnny Clausen, who's written some songs that people would be familiar with on the radio. And I really think that's great of Red Akins to include 2 younger songwriters. They're just rising up through the ranks. And of course, Rhett has written, I think, like 30 or 40 number 1 songs in his career. So he's always great. It's a really wonderful evening of stories and songs, and an intimate gathering of just the very beginnings of the songs that we're all familiar with from the radio.
And I thought it was really smart that you guys scheduled that Last Word, a conversation with Eric Church and Jelly Roll. I don't know if you saw the speech he gave at the CMAs. What was that, last year? But super. I mean, I probably watched that thing 20 times, and I tear up every time. Jelly Roll.
Oh yeah, the other thing that's impressive, he was testifying up on Capitol Hill a year or 2 ago.
I saw that too. Yeah,
about addiction and helping out people who've fallen into the addiction crisis. And I just, the more I'm around Jelly Roll, the more inspirational that I think he is. And I think you're right. I've been very excited about putting that session together. And just a quick backstory on that. Last year at CRS, we had Trisha Yearwood interview Lainey Wilson. And that was really an interesting conversation when you get 2 artists in that peer-to-peer level. Mm-hmm. Wasn't an original idea. I was at CMA Fest the summer before, and I saw Winona interviewing Trisha, or the other way around. Anyway, it was fantastic. And I was like, that is amazing, because those are conversations that artists can have with each other that a journalist couldn't pull out of that. They're living the same life. They have the same challenges. So that was very good last year. And I thought, how can we improve on that and develop that idea? And the idea was to get Eric Church and Jelly Roll together. And it took all year to pull together, because these guys have very busy schedules and things they're working on. And they were both they wanted to do it. They just had to lock down their schedule. So I'm really excited about how that's going to turn out. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. The other one too, Andy, if I could, I just want to mention that we have a similar kind of artist conversation going on. It's Old Dominion. Now they're playing Acoustic Alley on Thursday night, the 20th, but earlier in the day at 4:00, they're going to be interviewed by Shane McAnally, which is their producer, their collaborator.
And a guy who's written about 300 hit songs.
Yeah, and so you can imagine, Old Dominion, they're fun guys. I don't know if you or your followers have ever seen, they're funny, great guys. I think it'll be a really fun conversation.
Well, and incredible musicians. Good guys.
Absolutely, yeah, and songwriters. Before they were a band, they got together as a group of guys who wrote songs for people like Tim McGraw and Kenny Chesney, and just decided to, put a band together. And now look, they're many, like multiple CMA award winners for Group of the Year.
So as a consultant, I'm always pushing my clients to go to more radio conventions because many of them have cut back or stopped going altogether for budgeting reasons. What would you say to a GM to help me win that argument who's cut that line item out of their budget about why they should add it back in and why it's so important to go to these things?
Yeah, that's a good point. That's a great question, and thank you for asking it. I would say to GM or market manager, this is an investment in your employees' future and their career development that helps your radio station. Because of the educational aspect, it's just the education about issues, programming techniques, conversations are going on that sometimes we miss at the radio station level. And you know how this works, Andy. When you're at the radio station level, you're so dialed into your team, your radio station, your market, that sometimes, you can't like bring your, head up above the water and look around and see there's a big world out there of things, and other people are experiencing the same challenges and opportunities that you are. And that's why comparing notes is so valuable. So the networking and the education, not only in the sessions, but in the hallway, that's a very important part that I think could enhance anybody at the radio level, and could influence the rest of their team as well. And the music discovery. You're going to see a lot of music that is coming way down the road, and that will make your programmer, your music director, or even someone on the air a lot more aware and a lot more savvy about the format in general. And I think when you are able to relate that to listeners, that just gives your station and your air personalities a lot more credibility.
Yeah, and it's also a great opportunity to capture content, video, audio, pictures, and not just at CRS, but just, in Nashville while you're out and about. I mean,
yeah, I think it's, the way content is being, particularly for radio now, they're using a lot of stuff that's just beyond the show, right? Just it's content for the website. It's all a big canvas, right? And there's a lot of things in Nashville that could be really fascinating to local listeners who aren't in Nashville. So yeah, I think that's a great point. Great content grab opportunity.
Any Nashville restaurant recommendations for folks going?
Oh man, you know what? I gotta say, quick story. When I first started coming to CRS in the 80s, okay, this is my 41st CRS, which is crazy to say, but it is. But when I first started coming to Nashville all those years ago, Nashville was not much of a town for restaurants and stuff. It's really a foodie town now.
And a lot of good food.
There's a ton of great restaurants, and if you want an incredible dining experience that you'll have to splurge for, there's a place called the Bourbon Steakhouse. It's actually at the 34th floor of the JW Marriott, around the corner from the Omni, and that's extraordinary. Inside the Omni is a Bob's Steakhouse. I think Bob's originally
those are always good.
Yeah, Lexington, I think, is the home base for them. That's a great experience too. But boy, I tell you, just walking around Nashville, you can run into a lot of great places to eat and get entertained. There's a lot of that in Nashville. It's really become the choices used to be like a few, and now it's just, you'd have to spend several weeks here to really enjoy all that great food.
With your time in radio, I mean, you were at All Access, Country Air Check as well, and you worked at record labels. I think I saw that too.
I did. I spent about 18 months working for Arista Records. That got me here. That was the move to Nashville in 2009. And I've always said to people, it was a very important experience for me. I didn't enjoy being on the record label side. I was I was playing out of position really for me, but it was such a big part of my educational process. And I remember, Andy, that after I left Arista and joined Country Air Check, it really bolstered my credibility and my awareness of all the things that were around me, getting inside of a record label and seeing how that works. And it really was instructive to me, and has been helpful to me ever since. So while it wasn't a great fit for me, and that was not my best work, being completely honest, but it served as kind of an educational experience that I would not trade for anything. I'm glad I did it.
Yeah, and getting to see all sides of the business. What's the main difference between now and when you first started and being around country music?
Well, when I came into the format in 1980, and it's interesting that you say that, Andy, or ask that. When I came into the format, it was 1980, and it was still kind of in the urban cowboy, if you remember that era of country music. And even then I remember, and I didn't really know anything about country music because I took the job. It was a great gig in Los Angeles. I didn't know anything about the music. I never listened to it. The first song I heard, country song from start to finish, was my first night on the air at KZLA as a weekend personality. So, but I remember some people, running across and crossing paths with people in the format who had been in it for a long time. And there was this conversation about, is urban cowboy the end of country music as we know it? Is it too pop? And that conversation about too pop, too country, I'm sure, Andy, you've had that conversation.
It happens once a decade, I think.
Yeah, right. It does. And so that's been going on for a really long time. But I feel like when you look at, certainly 45 years ago now, okay, which is, I can't even believe I'm saying that. But all those years ago, that conversation continues, but the mainstream feel of country music right now today is really amazing. When you have Post Malone and all these collaborations and the pop influence, but more so right now, the music that's outbound from our format that's getting played on AC and pop stations, I think that's a big difference. There used to be a real angst about what is country, what isn't country, is it too pop over the years? And I just think, look, for me, the real purists get concerned about things getting watered down and it's not country enough. To me, and I really like seeing stuff getting out on where other formats are pulling music from our genre. That's great for our genre. And if someone likes hearing a Post Malone song and they come to a country radio station or streaming outlet or wherever the platform is, I hope that they'll go down a rabbit hole and listen to more country music and go deeper and deeper into it and discover what a fantastic genre this is. It hooks you in. And I've said, and this is from experience, and this is what happened to me when I got into the format. Remember, as I said, I wasn't exposed to any country music, right? But I fell in love with it within 2 years. I was like all in, and I made that decision. I said, this is the format I'm going to stay in for the rest of my career, and I have. So what I've said about the format is that once you start listening to it and introduced to it, no matter what your previous exposure, resistance is futile. You will become a fan. You will like it. And if you're a music fan, I think you have to respect it and appreciate it at the very least. So that's a great start.
And obviously living here in Texas, I know a lot of those purists that you talk about. And what I always tell them is if a pop superstar wants to fish in the country waters, let him. That's going to bring so many more people into country music that are fans of them. And like you said, then they fall in love with the rest of the music. And so I think it's a good thing. Do you think we'll see more of that this year? Do you think we'll see more other artists from other formats coming into country? Or do you think we're...
I do. I think, I keep hearing about Lana Del Rey making a country album, and I think I've been hearing about that for like a year, and I haven't seen anything, but sure. The only thing I would say, kind of a caveat there is if pop artists are going to do that, take a page out of the Post Malone playbook.
Absolutely.
Right? Because what he did was, I'm not saying that any pop artist has to come in and bow down and kneel at the throne of anything. I just think what Post did so well was come into the town, get into writers' rooms, embed himself in the culture and the ecosystem, mainly in the creative side of it, and understand, and he's an amazing artist for number one. So, I think that it sounds to me like he likes all kinds of music. Having listened to, I'm a big Post Malone fan, country, whatever, he's done. I think he's an incredible creative talent. But I think if people come into the market and seek a better understanding of the songwriting, the storytelling, that stuff, some of the history of it, I think that's really helpful. We are still, Nashville is, I guess it's always going to be a 10-year town, okay, maybe. And maybe it's not that anymore, but it's not a drive-by town. You got to get in here and experience what's going on. And I think that could be helpful to anybody thinking about trying this out.
Yeah, I saw Luke Bryan in an interview, and the way he put it, I thought was really good. He said, you got to hang out with us. You got to come into town. You got to hang. And I think that's so true. That's why it worked for Post Malone so well, is he really did come in, hang out. It was smart to partner with all those artists, and do collaborations on
a great entree, right?
Yeah.
But it's interesting because, like I said, all those writers' rooms that he was in, the F1 Trillion I love that album, and I love the collabs. I think they're great. But to me, when he released part 2 of that with just himself, I thought those work as country songs for me. Maybe just me, I don't know, but it's doing well. People love them. I can't wait for the next project.
And I know you got to jump here in a minute, but real quick, do you think we'll see AI impact radio and the music industry a lot this year? I know it already has in some respects.
Oh, yeah. In fact, the agenda has several sessions talking about AI, and I think we're very balanced on that this year. We have a workshop about how to use certain aspects of AI to apply it to, some of the things that radio has to accomplish. We have a session that is talking about the legal aspects of it, copyrights and not getting yourself into legal trouble, maybe not knowing that you could do that.
Sure.
So I just think back to 2 years ago at Sierras when the AI thing sort of exploded. We jumped on that very quickly. And I remember that session, Andy, because it was like fear-based. And as Mike McVeigh said it best, it was like the citizenry with, torches and pitchforks at the gates, ready to, storm the palace. And there was a lot of concern about job loss because our industry has had a lot of RIFs in recent years. More so, it's been going on for a long time, but certainly in recent years. I think the people that are left standing at the radio station, we know there's fewer and fewer people at radio stations in general. I think it could be an opportunity for them to do their job better, be more efficient, and even some creativity. Because what I hear from my radio friends at the station level is they are so busy every day. There's so many things on their plate. They're just trying to get things off their plate, and there's no room for creativity. Now, when I was in radio, that was put at a premium, and we had time to think about getting creative with things like that. But maybe AI can help that. I hope so, because radio does need another burst of creativity and personality and sizzle. We certainly need that.
Yeah, I agree with you. I always tell people, make it your coworker, not your replacement.
Absolutely. Yeah. Great way to put it. Yeah.
Well, so countryradioseminar.com is where they get all the information for CRS, but I know you're a busy guy, especially this time of year, so I appreciate you taking the time to chat with us.
Thank you for thinking about us. Appreciate it. And hope, if anybody has any questions about CRS, go to countryradioseminar.com. All the information is right there, and we hope to see you there, whether it's your 20th time or 41st in my case, or your first time. Everybody's welcome.
Perfect. Thank you, RJ.
Thank you very much.
Radio Influencers is a radio update production. New episodes are released on Tuesdays at 10 a.m. Eastern.